video in your bloomers. So
that's right.
Why do you always do that? Okay, good. Well, let's just get beyond that. Good morning, everybody. Good morning, FinTech.
We're live. I didn't realize.
Nutrimonsters all over the country, if not the world. Today is April 6th, and we are ready to go. Everyone has their coffee, their tea. They're very proud of it. They're holding up their mugs. They've made it themselves in some cases. My staff is unbelievable. Is everyone awake today? Everyone feel good?
I feel amazing.
You feel amazing? Okay, wait, we have an amazing Jackie.
I'm awake. I slept
amazing. I worked out already. I've been outside.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Jen?
I've had a plumber here already, so.
That's not a euphemism, is it? Thea, how about you? How are you doing, Thea?
I'm good. I'm awake.
Okay, good. I'm awake too. I woke up this morning. I felt like the Hulk. If the Hulk was drunk the night before, I was banging into walls and everything like that. But I've since awoke. We have a really fascinating subject today. So I want to start out just telling a brief story. True story. In 1999, all of the big food companies got together. A dozen of them got together in Minnesota for a meeting. Now, the meeting was called by one of these gentlemen, and the purpose of it was that they were becoming very alarmed by the obesity rates, which were just spiraling out of control in this country. For those of you who don't know or who don't remember, in the early 1980s, the obesity rates in this country among adults were about 10 to 14%. It had been like that for decades. And starting at that point, they started rising and rising and rising to where now almost 40% of adults in this country are obese. Yeah. Right? So these guys saw this trend, and one of them in particular said, we've got to do something about this because, you know, there are suits that are going to come down. We're going to be regulated from the outside, so we need to get out in front of this. And they had this big meeting to discuss this. Now, during the meeting, one of the other guys stood up and he said, you know what? Not our responsibility. Our responsibility is to make good, tasty food that people like. And if they get sick and if they get obese, well, that's on them. And that essentially ended the meeting.
Right.
And this was documented in a book called Salt, Sugar, and Fat. And these companies for years have been just trying to get us addicted to their foods. Literally, they hire psychologists, psychiatrists, food scientists. They manipulate the chemistry of the foods. So, Jen, let me ask you first, is there a bad guy in this situation, in this whole obesity crisis? Is there a guy stroking a cat, or many of them?
So do you want me to answer from your thoughts, or do you want me to answer from the fact that they're bound by their shareholders and their job is to make money and turn a profit every quarter?
I want you to answer honestly in a way that will not get us sued.
So, you know, that is just one aspect of it. If you look at the sugar industry as a separate industry and you look at what the sugar industry itself has done, that's insidious. If you look at the fact that the shareholders of big food, big ag, tie into the shareholders of big pharma, and there's a vicious cycle of getting us sick and unhealthy, to get us on meds, to get us sick and unhealthy, to eat more. There's never any profit to be made in health. So the answer is, on an individual basis, the people in the company, like the researchers at big pharma, the individuals, or the food scientists, of which I have some in my family, are good people. They're people of good intent. However, the higher you go up the chain, you know, the bottom line is profit. We live in a capitalist society, which is not in and of itself bad. You know, commerce drives our economy, and it's a good thing.
Sure.
However, I do believe that further up the chain, there's a bigger battle going on.
Do you remember the time? Do you remember the time that the food? There was an owner of a food company, and he put out a challenge, and he said, "You know what? I am going to bonus. I'm going to give the biggest bonus ever to the guy who creates the healthiest food,
right?
Regardless of profit." Right. Do you remember that?
Vaguely.
It never happened.
Yeah,
it never happened. The bonus purely on results.
Yeah.
All right.
So yeah.
Jackie, what is it like as a young mother? We're giving you the benefit of doubt here, a young mother. When you're trying to find good, healthy food for your kids, what are your challenges?
There's a ton of challenges. One, it's environment. My kids, I can't complain. They're both phenomenal eaters. They really do eat well. But they're kids and their friends, some of them don't. You know, my son came home and he asked me if he could have Pop-Tarts, and I almost fell over. Now, have I had a Pop-Tart before? Yes, but I'm trying to do better for my children. So there are a lot of things that me and my husband do on a regular basis that parents don't, and that's bless you.
Thank you.
That some don't, and not because they don't care for their kids. It's just that we strongly believe that keeping them healthy inside out is a big deal. And also what you're putting in your body. So it's not like we don't let them have dessert and don't let them have snacks. We try to limit as much as possible. Corinne's daughter could attest to this too. I will torture her till the end of her life for it. I also am a big believer in, if I have to hide veggies, I will. I mean, they do eat them. But you know what? If you want that chocolate chip cookie, wink, wink, you have no idea it's made out of chickpeas. That's okay. So my kids do eat chickpea cookies, but they actually know and they love them. They're a form of, like, you know, I do give in to my son. I'll let him have like Cheez-Its every once in a while, but like the regular Cheez-Its are made from cauliflower. You know, like I really try, but there is a challenge. It's a really big challenge. You know, we have their vitamins. You know, I give them Smarty Pants multivitamins, and I just recently found out that there's 5 grams of sugar in a serving size, but serving is considered 1. And at my kids' ages, they should be having 4 a day. So they're getting 20 grams of sugar from a multivitamin. So I just recently switched to another brand, but like there's so many hidden things where it's like you can't. It's just a constant struggle. It's a struggle, and it doesn't mean I don't indulge them and let them have what they want.
There's one right now.
There's one right now.
There's mini you right there.
Exactly.
I'm a little viewer.
A little viewer, she said.
Hey, if you're just joining us, we're talking about the food industry and some of the challenges of being healthy in this country. So there's kind of a sub theme today, and the sub theme is, it's not all your fault. It is, however, everyone's responsibility. Now, Thea, you're a very healthy eater, or at least you try to be. You're a pure vegan.
Yep.
What is that like in today's society when you're looking for healthy, natural food?
In the past, it was very difficult to find healthy food, alternative meat. So, and it was just soy, and I don't eat soy either. So, but now it's become more predominant. So I can pretty much find things everywhere I go. There's always a substitute in any place I go to. So,
but even culturally, I mean, you're Italian, you come from an Italian family, you're going against the grain in a sense.
My father,
you know, it's
ballistic because he'll make, you know, a pot of gravy. We call it gravy, sauce, gravy, you know, that whole thing. So our family calls it gravy, and he'll make a pot of gravy with meat, and he'll make a separate pot for me. And then my sister doesn't like gravy; she uses ketchup.
Yeah, no self-respecting Italian.
And my father goes, he's like, "How did
he
this
goes ballistic?
happen?"
You're holistic, and he's ballistic.
My father's like, "How did this happen? My 2 kids, one doesn't eat meat from an Italian family, and my one daughter doesn't eat the gravy that I cooked. She uses ketchup."
Ketchup. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Good. Well, that's an interesting thing culturally. So we have a couple of people. Raise your hand if you're Italian. Okay. So we have 3 of us.
Yeah, I want to be Italian too, Jackie.
And and Jackie's the wannabe. Look at that last name. She said she's not, but she is. So it's funny because, you know, a few years ago, I don't know if you all know about this, but what we did was we set out to document the reasons why people were having struggles on the program. And I had a chart. And when we would ask people what went wrong, the number one thing that came up was simply because I'm Italian.
Yeah.
Right?
So a lot of people say that.
Yeah. A lot of people say that. Yes, they say I'm Italian. It's very hard.
I'm like,
that's because we like to eat. Like, you have never seen. I was born.
Who doesn't like to eat?
I'm married, right?
Dr. R. It's 7 o'clock in the morning, and my mom was looking at me going, "What do you want for dinner tonight?
Yep.
What do you want for dinner tonight?" It's the first thing you do when you wake up when you're Italian. You think about what you're going to have for breakfast, lunch, and dinner.
But not even that. It's funny. Breakfast, like, what's the standard? Like, for those who do eat breakfast, because some of us still continue to do the intermittent fasting, but for breakfast, I'm thinking like eggs. Sometimes on the weekends, you'll have pancakes or French toast, or like alternate during the week. No, they used to have a pastry and dip it, or the cookies and dunk it in their quart. Like, that's breakfast.
Yeah.
And I'm like, is that normal?
Yes.
Like, this is like, yeah. I'm like, I love this. This is amazing.
Well, this is a topic that we need to address as well, which is culture and the pressures of culture to eat. Rebecca, in my family, food was shoved down our throats. It was like, it was going to all disappear if we didn't eat it up right away. Did you grow up like that?
Oh my goodness. And it's still a trigger. Like, I still feel like every time my parents come or anytime I go upstate, I go home, I totally overeat. It's something about being around my mom. That's like,
don't you feel bad? Like, if you don't finish it?
And she gets so much joy from watching us eat that it makes me want to do it even more. So yes, absolutely 100%.
So she expresses her love through food.
Yes.
And she takes it personally if you don't eat a lot.
Exactly. And as we're eating, oh God, I hope she's not watching this. As we're eating, so like you take the first bite and there's 4 more pork chops. Who wants another pork chop? Do you want more potato? You want, and like, so you're feeling like you're not eating enough as you're eating. It's, so anyway.
It's true.
Yeah.
It's
so
true.
We have the food companies, and their job is to get us fat. And then we have mothers who they think their job is to get us fat. We have our cultures that are all centered around eating.
Right.
I mean, how are we not even more obese than we are as a nation?
Correct.
It's crazy. I think, and I notice I catch myself now, and it's always like, as your kids, like, oh, you'll understand when you have kids. You'll understand when you have kids. And I catch myself now doing certain things, and I'm like, oh, okay, that's what you meant. And I'm like, okay.
Give me an example.
Like, if my kids don't finish something, like, I'm okay with that, but it's like, it's a compromise. It's like, okay, well, you have to have 3 more pieces. And in my head, I'm like, if they have those 3 more pieces, they're healthy. And my mom, I remember as a kid, like, I was a picky eater. I was a very picky eater. And my mom we always had good food. Like, we were foodie people, but there were sorry, my son's on Zoom. There were no restrictions, so it was like, oh, it's okay. And I noticed, like, my mom with the kids, like, or like even my in-laws, like, if they want something, they're like, no, it's okay, you can have it. But I'm like, hey, if that was me, I wouldn't be allowed to have that. Like, I'd have to finish this before I had that. So it was like it's like a seesaw kind of.
So Jen, Thea, and Corinne, tell us what would happen when you were young and we're not young, we're adults now, right? But some of these things kind of stay with us. So tell us what would happen when you were young if you refused to eat as much as your mothers wanted you to.
I had to sit at the dinner table till I ate it. And if I didn't, I would fall asleep at the dinner table. And I had to have a cup of milk every single night at dinner. So then I would spill it every night at dinner just so that I didn't have to drink it.
My mom, that must have been a thing though. My mom said the same thing. They used to have milk at dinner, and then, or they weren't allowed, depending what it was, what they were eating, they weren't allowed to drink until they were done eating everything because they didn't want them to fill up.
We did not leave the table until every ounce of food was off our plates. We'd fall asleep at the table.
Yeah.
How about you, Jen? How did Anna torture you if you didn't eat?
Yeah, so I was an underweight child, like super underweight. I had no interest in food because I was too active, and I would never sit still to eat food, which is, kind of shocking because I'm still sort of active. She actually went to the doctor, the pediatrician, to ask like what she could do, and his answer was, she won't starve. Put the food in front of her. No child has ever starved to death intentionally. And when she's hungry, she'll eat. And when she's not, she won't. So
was that good enough for her?
It was good enough for her because she heard it from the authority that I wouldn't starve to death.
Got it.
That being said, she has, my mom lives with us. She's helped kind of co-raise my kids. And she's always said to me, I put too much food on their plate and I give them, it's overwhelming. So put less, but more choices of things because my kids like a smorgasbord. And I've sort of learned from that, less portions. However, my grandmother, would say to me, "Oh my God, you need to eat more. You're too skinny." And then if I gained like an ounce, she would say, I think
Oh, she was judgmental.
Right. She would cause it, and then she would blame you and criticize you
Or
for it.
yeah.
That's typical. Has anyone else experienced that? Raise your hand if you experienced something like that from a mother or grandmother.
Well, my mother-in-law, who I love dearly, she's a food pusher also, my Jewish mother. And she literally, with my husband, have another brownie. Oh my God, you're getting so fat. Look at your belly. Have another brownie. And he's like, Mom, you know, we're getting a signal.
Yeah.
I got that from my grandmother. So my grandmother did this thing where we'd sit at the table and she would tell us a story. And then then she'd ask us a question and we'd open our mouths to answer the question. She would literally shove the fork of food in our faces.
And then don't talk with your mouth full.
I don't, she didn't mind as long as you were eating. And she had something called the Clean Plate Club. You had to belong to the Clean Plate Club, which, by the way, I was the captain. Always clean my plate.
Yeah.
Thea, how about you? How about you? What'd they do in your family if you didn't eat as much as they wanted you to?
Well, my grandmother was the huge food pusher, and if I just came from dinner, I'd be like, Nan, I don't want it, thank you. She'd go in the refrigerator. How about this? No, she'd cook something up. How about this? And I'm like, she would not let me leave unless I ate.
You had to eat something.
But my parents, my father kind of ruled with an iron fist. So if he told us we needed to eat, if we would grow up, we ate.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, let's get a little deeper into this. Has anyone ever had the experience in your family or have seen it where if someone a child wouldn't eat everything that was in their dish, it was dumped onto their head?
Oh God, no.
I've actually heard stories like that.
Wow.
I mean, I've heard scenarios like that, but not in our house, not in our family. No.
Jackie, what is it about? And I'm saying mothers. I don't want to throw all mothers under the bus. I'm sure fathers do this as well.
I'm sure.
What is it about mothers that it's so important and they take it so personally if their kids won't eat everything?
You know, it's funny. I think it's a little different. I don't take it personally if they don't eat something as if like I cooked it bad or it doesn't taste good. It's more along the lines of like knowing your child. Like, so for example, my husband and I will say like, well, listen, you know, if you're too full to finish this, then please don't ask for dessert. That means you're not, we know you're going to ask in 20 minutes or say you're hungry in an hour or so-and-so. So it's more or less just kind of getting that read. I don't take it personal. It's more like, I know they're going to try to get over on me. My kids are definitely smarter than that. I'm like, It's definitely a generational thing. You know, I give them a lot of credit because they are good eaters. My daughter eats everything. She's willing to try everything. My son, thank God, has gotten better because he was literally just a protein kid. Like he didn't eat pasta until like 2 years ago. So, and my husband, who, you know, in a cultural environment, you know, Italian, like no pasta. I remember my father-in-law was like, is there something wrong with it? Like, is that okay? Is there something wrong? He wouldn't even eat pastina. And it was a texture issue because of his lip tie and tongue tie. So we've overcome that now. And now he's like getting braver and he's trying things. I almost fell over. He had veal with mushrooms the other day. We were like clapping. We would do like a happy dance in the kitchen. You know?
I treat my dog the same way. If my dog doesn't eat,
You worry.
I have like 5 or 6 different foods for him, and if he doesn't eat that one, I try another one. I even play with him.
Yeah.
I throw him, he runs after it. I'll do anything for him to eat, and it's not. I don't. Sometimes I cook the food, but most of the time I don't, and I just want him to be healthy.
Yeah. Well, so that's what I was just gonna say. Like, I think so. We associate food with being the fixer of everything, right? So it's emotional. It fixes you. If it's good food, it keeps you healthy. You know, it gives you what you need. And then there's the bad food that takes away and does all those things. So I think because we associate it with every aspect of our life, it's an inkling to me that if they're not eating and then don't want anything else, I'm like, there's something wrong. Are you sick?
Right.
You don't feel good? Is everything okay? And then I worry. So I don't have that connection where I'm offended. I'm more like, you're not eating. What's wrong? What happened?
Yeah.
Like that.
Yeah. I had that experience that you're having. I had a pet and she was sick and dying actually, and she wouldn't eat. And it was the most upsetting thing. And I said, well, I think I might understand mothers now. I mean, it's all somewhat, though it's somewhat fear-based.
It is.
Rebecca, Jen, have you experienced that where if your child didn't eat, you were just scared at some level that they were going to get sick?
No, actually, because food is something that's been prevalent in my life. I've been using food as medicine for 30 years. It's actually one of my passions. It's why I went to school.
Does that mean that you've been injecting it into your veins?
Injecting
Close to it. Butter, Jen and butter.
Butter. Oh my God. Right.
Rub
Caffeine and butter. No, I actually studied food when my kids were young. And one of the things that is interesting that they don't teach parents is that children don't eat a balanced diet naturally on a daily basis. Like we'll put a fruit, a vegetable, a protein, a carb, or whatever on their plates. Children intuitively eat as their body requires nutrients. So a child who eats a lot of protein is building brain function and muscle. Children who have attention issues actually crave fat. So children know intuitively, we know, our bodies know intuitively what's best for us, but then it becomes corrupt because we put foods in that change what we are used to eating. So I would watch their patterns and, you could actually see the growth charts, like at age 18 months, generally, children are doing more brain development. So their protein requirements are higher, or muscle, or if they're doing like whatever. It's been 26 years since I've looked at this hardcore, but I was very fortunate that I had a pediatrician whose husband was a researcher in pediatric development, in child development. So she was very attuned to that. She showed me these charts and these growth patterns and how to let them eat. It's also very natural for children, for people to not want to eat. Like you ever wake up one day and you're like, I'm not really interested in food.
Yes.
Sure. So that happened to me once in 1987. Yeah.
It's usually when I have the itis and it's after a holiday the next day and I'm like, oh.
I don't know what the itis is. I don't know if I want to know.
It's like food coma.
Food coma.
Okay. Fair enough.
But our bodies know when to rest. And dogs are funny too. Like in the wild, they don't eat regularly the way we eat them. And cats, the same thing. So we've changed our eating patterns. So
yes.
No.
Well, you have that faith and that understanding that you developed. How about you, Rebecca, though? Do you find that fear and worry plays a part, or did it at any time when you were a mother of young children?
So no, because I actually look at my son and I say, thank God that he doesn't have that foodism that I had or had, and that my family struggles with. My family, I come from a family of food addicts. So to see my son be able to say, no, Mom, I'm not hungry, I respect it, because the way that I was raised was that you finish everything on your plate, and it really messed me up. I've struggled with eating issues my entire life, and I still do. So I want my son to be able to empower himself and make the choice if he's hungry or not. And even recently, he's been in a really big, I'm not hungry phase. Worries me a little because he's growing so much and he plays tons of hockey. But it's kind of like, what Jen was saying, no kid is going to starve. So he's going to eat when he's hungry. And I love that he's this healthy, strong, ripped up little kid. And
yeah, you're right.
When he's hungry. So that that gives me actually joy.
All right. So mothers, tell me this. Have you ever said to your kid, you better finish that because there are children starving in Africa?
I have said, I've made comments like that before, but I'll tell you why. Out of frustration, I had a handful of times, I'm like, there are people starving that don't have anything. Out of frustration, I'm not going to lie, because all day, I'm hungry, I'm starving, I want this. Okay, can I just have a cookie? No, you can't have a cookie. Oh, can I have it? No, you can't have that. I'm making you dinner. I make them something, I put it on the plate, and if they have 2 bites, because they don't want it, they want something else, and this is not, this is not a diner. We're not placing orders here. Like, this is what I made you. This is what you're eating. You knew this is what you were eating. You just said that you were starving. You were literally seconds from your deathbed because you were not eating.
Right.
And now you don't want it.
Right.
How does that happen? That does not happen. That's not real life. You're lying to me. You're eating. You're eating it. Now you're eating it.
Raise your hand.
I've said that to my dog.
You said it to your dog. And what was your dog's response?
There's homeless dogs on the street that they can't get food, and you have all this food. I tell it to my dog.
You're manipulating your poor little canine. That's horrible. Is there a DIFUS for animals? Yeah, the Humane Society, right? Well, we've all heard that, I assume. Bless you, Jen.
Thank you.
We've all heard that. And so just out of curiosity, what were the responses when you heard that when you were growing up?
My kids are, I don't remember if that's.
You never heard that? Nobody ever said to you?
I don't remember, or honestly, I was probably chewing too loud to hear it if somebody.
I was going to say, it was never, like, I was always eating all the food and everybody was starving because I ate all the food. So
I ate everything.
I had it said to me. I've never said it to my kids, but I had it said to me, and my answer was, ship it to them.
That's it. Let's just send it to them.
Don't talk to Isabella.
Yeah.
Don't talk to Isabella. Yeah. I don't know. Like my kids honestly were not fazed when I said that. And I don't know if that's good or bad. Like I said it and they're just like,
you didn't raise heartless children. Don't worry.
Clearly. I don't know. They're definitely gonna be rebels, I'll tell you that much. I'm scared.
So what other challenges do you find as moms with raising kids and trying to have them eat healthily in a world where, actually now 25% of kids are obese.
Right.
Children are developing type 2 diabetes. They used to call it adult onset diabetes.
Yeah.
I mean, these things are unprecedented in history. Basically, in a sense, we're being experimented on with processed foods that have been interfered with chemicals such as glyphosate, which we talked about, Roundup, foods that have been experimented with that are genetically modified.
Right.
So what other challenges as moms have you found with your kids?
Go ahead, Jen.
I was going to say, I always have like the voice of reason here, which is like tough to deal with sometimes. As moms, we're in control of the food source in the house. So like just some really interesting stats are women spend 80 cents, are responsible for spending 80 cents of every dollar spent in this country. So as moms, as women, we have a lot.
That explains a lot.
Control.
We have a lot of buying power. And,
I don't think that's what Dr. Reynolds meant.
I know what it meant. But like, I'm guilty of it. If you look at my pantry, I've got like pirate's booty in there, but I'm responsible for
That's terrible.
What's that?
That's not, pirate booty is not terrible.
It's not. However, it's junk food. So, however, the difference is like when they go in the world, they go to school and they're served garbage, and they go to their friends' houses and they get like yodels or whatever it is. So the balance is trying to figure out what I'm feeding them here versus what they're eating. And for me, once they hit a certain age, like my big thing with my son is he loves fast food. And my answer is I'm not spending my hard-earned dollar on that. So if you want that, you're working, God bless you, have at it. My thing is I just don't want to spend my money on supporting an industry that's bad.
Enabling it, yeah.
I have a quick story. My nephews, I took my nephews to when they were real little. I don't know, they were like 4 and 6, and they wanted to go to McDonald's. And I turned around, I looked at them, I said, "We don't go to McDonald's." I said, "Did you hear about the little boy that ate McDonald's and they had to cut his stomach open?" And they were like, "It wasn't true. I just told them that."
Of course it wasn't true. That was like the Africa story.
Yeah, and they were like,
now we're gonna get sued.
So like, so like a week later, my brother calls me. He's like, "Did you tell the boys that a little boy had to get their stomach cut open from eating McDonald's?" I go, "I did." He goes, "Thanks," because he used to take them. But I served my purpose.
Yeah,
right. You had to play a trick on the kid for his own benefit, ultimately.
I agree with you though, Jen, because I think it's an 80-20. Truthfully, I mean, they are kids, and it's not that. For example, like I don't live a particular lifestyle where, like, for example, Thea, you're vegan, where those things would never be in our house. Like, so we eat well, and we eat good food, and we cook every night, and we enjoy. And you guys know we love going out and socializing and going out to restaurants to eat real food. But I won't not allow my kids to have certain things. So like, I do have the goldfish in the house and the pirate's booty or pretzels. But then my balance is like before they go for that first, we really try to push like, okay, let's have fruit first, yogurt and real yogurt, you know, like me and my sister-in-law have this talk about that one time her husband went to BJ's and brought home Danimals. She almost fell over. She goes, that's not yogurt, you know, but like my kids have like real yogurt, you know, like real Greek yogurt, you know, so there's definitely the balance and you have that control. Do we give in sometimes? Absolutely. And I think that's also allows them to make the decision on their own. You know, so like if I give Giovanni an option and say, do you want a smoothie or a yogurt? He'll choose one or the other. 1 second, baby, okay? But if you turn around and say, do you want cheese doodles or, you know,
broccoli,
pita chips or broccoli? It's like, oh, cheese doodles, exactly. Broccoli, you know.
So you know, I want to mention what you hit on. You hit on yogurt and that there's real yogurt and then there's yogurt that's been really played with a lot. So I'm sorry?
It has a character on it. It's appealing.
Right.
They make it very hard.
But it's worse than that, because the story I was telling before about this meeting among the big food giants, well, one of them was General Mills, and that's the guy who broke up the meeting, who said, we have no responsibility to do anything but, you know, serve delicious food to our customers. That's what they want. Right. And they had a product called Yoplait. Yoplait, you might remember Yoplait was a type of yogurt, but it turned out Yoplait had, and I want to get this right, and if I'm not exactly right, I'll look it up and I'll correct it. But Yoplait, I think it had double the sugar that Lucky Charms had.
Oh my God.
So that's what they did, right? They took this food that they were proclaiming was such a healthy food, they made it unhealthy.
Right.
So question, would you guys be okay if there was something like a tax on sugar, or if there was warning labels on products that had
would I be okay
sugar?
with it? Okay with it? Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I'd be okay
You would.
with it.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the more I see, no, like, so Jen studied this for years, right? So she's ahead of the game. Me, I really feel like I learned more, and this is kind of crazy. So we were always good foodies, but when I was a kid, or when I was in my 20s, and now I'm in my mid 30s, thank you. But when I was waiting for Dr. R's comment.
Okay, you're holding it together so far. You haven't hit the wall yet, Jen.
I'm close. Yeah. But it's like, I feel like with every stage of the game, like, yeah, like, listen, I've had McDonald's and I've had those things. Now I look at it like, oh my God, how did I eat that? How did I do those things on a regular basis? But then I would, you know, hit the gym 5 days a week. I was always super active, but my diet didn't go in conjunction at the time. But as it didn't affect me negatively in my 20s, let's say. And then when I had kids, I'm like, oh my God. So I started to learn certain things where they just were never an okay thing, or it would be a once in a while thing. Like, I could probably count, and my husband said the same thing, on my right hand, how many times my children have had a McDonald's, and it was like really in a jam type thing. Like, okay, well, it's like super late. They didn't eat, like, where else we go? And there's nothing around. We're driving on a highway for 6 hours, and we've succumbed to it. We have, you know, and that's being honest. Is it a regular thing? No. Is it part of our diet? Absolutely not. And, you know, same thing when it comes to cereal. My kids want the heart cereal. It's the Kashi cereal. Should they be having cereal? Not so much. But I'm definitely not letting them have, you know, Lucky Charms or the Count one. What was it? The Count with the chocolate. It was like a little Rice Krispie that turns to it turns to chocolate milk. You know, it really it is challenging. It's very hard. It's but like I said, I'm learning as I go. Whereas Jen, you knew this before going into it.
Right. So I did. And the funny thing is, for like 6 years, I owned a catering company. So whatever food I was using to cater is what my kids got. So my son will say, well, you fed us garbage. I was like, yeah, it was expediency. I was a single mom. You got what I cooked. But you know, I didn't know better.
Yeah. But you know, sorry. Oh, it's a movie. I'm like, is that? Oh, okay.
Yeah, no.
When you touched on that, though,
yeah,
that also brings back to like the bigger companies. So they're saying it's our job to make delicious food. It's our job to sell it, but they're making what tastes good by using non-real products. They're using chemicals, and they're piping it up with garbage. That's not food. So you can make something that's delicious, that's a cheese doodle that's made out of vegetables, or do something that's less fillers, less garbage. I'm just saying cheese doodle, but but I'm just saying there are ways to do it healthier without all the poison.
Correct. So there's always, I tell our clients in the weight room this, there's always a healthy substitute for a
Always.
Always. So a couple things, like Jackie, you touched upon the fact that when you were younger, it didn't affect you. It's two things. Your body is younger, so it processes things differently. But when, I'm a little bit older than you. When I was a kid, the ingredients that are in today's foods were not in today's foods.
No, not at all.
So the industry that we talk about designed the food pyramid, which was not a healthy pyramid. And where I went to school, we have our own food. It's called a food plate, and it's slightly different than what the food industry has put out there.
Probably more than slightly.
It's slightly significantly different. Also, there's primary food and secondary food. Primary is like relationships, spirituality, movement, so exercise and movement, and career, which is purpose, which we talked about last year. And that's the outer rim of the food plate. And that actually is what our focus in life should be on. And then the foods nourish the body. But you mentioned sugar, Dr. Mendes. I'm hitting like 1,000 points here.
Yes.
They really do come together, though.
They do come together.
Yeah.
And you mentioned sugar. So, sugar, the industry is really bad. Like people, if they want to see what went on behind the scenes, there's a documentary called Sugar Coated. It
I want to watch that.
Eye-opening.
My uncle said you will never touch the food again.
Sugar's an opioid.
After watching it. Yeah, it is.
Very dangerous to the body. And then, I'm like, so many good points here.
No, but this is good.
It's good.
You're gonna have to write them down, because at this point, I think it's a good place to start next week. I mean, we have mentioned a lot of things, but what can be done public policy wise? What can be done as individuals? Because we can't obviously just go around saying, them. And abdicate all our responsibility. On the other hand, on the other hand, it is factually so that there are people out there. Actually, I can't say this is factually so, but it seems like there are people out there whose intentions are to make larger consumers. Larger consumers eat more.
So you can definitely find that.
Yeah.
I would postulate that it is factually so, and you can.
I would too, but I'm presenting it as my opinion. Out of an abundance of caution and responsibility.
I was going to say, out of caution.
So that's going to be it for this week. Everyone, thank you for joining us. We will be here again 9:30-ish next week.
9:30-ish. Yeah, we had some issues logging in.
There's always some tech stuff going on, so we'll do our best to be on time, okay? All right, everyone, take care.
Bye, guys. Have a good week.
Bye.